Over to you.
Good afternoon. I'm Titi Poswa. Thank you, Program Director. I also have the privilege today to present in the presence of the Registrar. Thank you, Doc. You inspired me last night and today for your insights. I also greet the board members, the chair, and thank you for the opportunity to be part of this important nation-building exercise. Thank you very much. And also the greetings for my colleagues, the Eastern Cape. The colleagues from the Eastern Cape, I'm born and bred in this area, so I have some kind of bias, also feeling more comfortable at home. So thank you very much. I'm requested to share some insights on the issues of ethics in environmental health. Today, 27 August 2025, in the EHPs SA Environmental Health Professional Board Roadshow at Port Elizabeth. It's as if we sat and talk with the colleagues, because some of the things that I normally have to bring more information, they've covered. So I'm using a total different approach today. I'm going to be using confidentiality as a point of departure and focus in the area of practice as environmental health in South Africa. My presentation will look briefly what environmental health is, EHPs as already explained, and then we'll look at 5 areas of ethical practice in terms of municipal health services, the national health framework, the border management, which is an area that is not normally talked about. And also we look into the area of HPCSA ethical and professional standards, as well as the area of the academia. Our aim is to look at ethical decision-making process or processes that are very difficult in line with the Constitution, and also trying to look into the importance of privacy, which has imposed some kind of a change in how we carry ourselves and conduct our professional activities as professionals. I'm coming from the old school where we were health inspectors. Health inspectors were law enforcers. You speak law, and then the Health Act was telling us, you don't do this, this will be happening, and so on. And then the era of democracy changed that with the Constitution coming, and then that's a Constitution that brings that change. So we will be exploring, as I said earlier on, the confidentiality. Confidentiality is more than a mere professional obligation. It is a constitutional right, so in a way, so I will be using that as a frame. The aim is to equip EHPs with the ethical understanding and practical tools that you'll be needing in order to uphold confidentiality within the regulatory framework within our country, and the way it is governing how we as EHPs ought to be carrying our work. We are carrying a very difficult work of making sure that the public is safe, but at the same time we have a duty to ourselves to carry ourselves in a way that is acceptable and aligned with the things. So if we were to look at the definition of environmental health from the context of the World Health Organization, it's simplified, at the same time it's broadened up. And our South African practice is also aligned to that. But if you look at the definition of environmental health within the context of the legislation in South Africa, it's using a World Health Organization 204. It's not talking to the latest. If you look at the latest definition of environmental health, there are some changes that recognize some of the latest developments. WHO says environmental health addresses all physical, chemical, biological factors, which Advocate Pendani also alluded to. These are external to a person. The registrar was saying He's a medical doctor. We are making sure that the medical doctors don't get clients. That's our duty. Unfortunately, Register, that's hard what we are meant to be. We don't want people to go to the doctor. If we can achieve that exercise, then we will be doing well. And then, so we are looking at the external factors. But now, the element that the WHO is bringing is talking about behavior. The behavior aspect makes ethics more important. Because as we are dealing with that, we need to look at how are conducting ourselves. We aim to prevent. I like the EHPs, they like the phrase of first line of what? Defense. First line of defense. Our aim in the environment is to prevent diseases and support health through safe environmental issues like water, air, the food we eat. I hope that the food that is we are going to be eating or have been eating has been checked. Will be safe from here. And then also to make sure that we deal with issues of climate change and pollution, as well as occupational health and safety. For us as South Africans, EHPs, we are having a serious issue in South Africa, the outbreak of the food poisoning aspect that is happening now, leading to the establishment of the MEC by the president. It is looking at the issues of pesticides. Pesticide is a big issue that we are looking at. But when we deal with those things, what are the issues that we encounter that tend to be ethical and so on? So those are the areas to consider. But before we do that, we need to be compliant. All our speakers this morning, they talk about you being compliant. But I want to say, for you to be called a professional environmental health practitioner, I list 5 issues that you need to cover. 1, you need to have a profession with its training like we are doing. Number 2, you need to be having a professional body that regulates that profession or the practice that you are having. Number 3, you must be in good standing. When the CPDs were talking about here, you must be in good standing. That means you're compliant. Oh, by the way, I'm compliant. Yeah, so I'm compliant, and I think this is the reason why they also asked me to be here. I thought they must have checked that I'm meeting the requirements. So I do. Yes, you must be professional registered. Number 4, you must operate within the scope of practice. There is no excuse that you carry work beyond your duty or beyond your consent, whatever the case may be. If you do so, you are infringing your scope or what you are expected to deal with. And last but not least, personal growth. The CPD has been explained. I was pleased when my colleague was explaining CPDs in the manner that CPDs are so easy to get. Is that we need to have good records of what you do and take it serious. When we ask you to be guest lecturers, at times you say, no, it's nothing to do with me. Now you can see it is adding value. So we'll listen to your calls so that we can help you there. Let's get to the ethics as a constitutional duty from a public health service. Section 195 of the Constitution sets some principles that we all need to do. It sets values and principles that will shape an ethical, compliant, or sensitive service delivery in the public. It says the public service ought to be upholding a high standard of professional ethics. When you are carrying your work and executing that service, make sure that you are using resources in a profitable manner and in a proper manner. Some of you are using government vehicles. Am I correct? You are not. Oh, things have changed, so you're using your cars, all of you. Then, so if you are using the resources, make sure that you are using them profitable. That's an ethical issue. You must make sure you use what is necessary. Don't waste resources when they are so much limited. You must also make sure that your approach is developmental. As much as you want compliance, negotiate with people. Educate people to make sure that they understand what they have to do. Don't just serve a notice. Educate. Develop them. Then at the end of the day, you will be having more people that are more compliant. And then make sure that you are impartial. Don't favor. Advocate Pendan talks about law. That's where we differ. I differ with him when it comes to the law and ethics. The law is dry, but ethics is the issues of the heart. But you ought to be compliant, but you ought to be taking it from the heart. You must have compassion as you are doing it, but don't favor. If something is same to me, I'm committing the same thing, treat me the same way. Very difficult issues to deal with. So you must also deal with your biases. We all have our biases. Don't tell me that you are not having biases. There are those people that you favor because they always listen to you. But there are those that are giving you a hard time. You must treat them the same way as much as they do. That's how difficult it is to be ethical. So you must also respond. This is one difficult one. It says respond to people's needs. If you look at the rate of complaints and you look at the national norms and standards, they have a turnaround time. You compare your routine inspection with the complaints. How do you balance the two? How do you balance the complaints, the amount of complaints that you receive compared to your mandatory routine inspection? The complaint says you must have a turnaround of how much time? And then it is a constitutional responsibility that you must respond to the complaints, the needs of the people. So these are the things that tend to be having tensions when it comes to you being compliant as an EH. Accountability is also another very important thing, and transparency. And this transparency applies to all spheres, whether you're in the government, in the local government, any organs of the state, and the public entities. And this must promote compliance, and then the policies need to be aligned. Please, all of us, can we please take Section 195 and make sure that we integrate into our practices? It will make a big change on how we look at things. Now, if we look at ethics and confidentiality in environmental health, we'll say ethics, when it comes to that, ethical practice in environmental health involve protecting human health, as we said. And then one of the important things is that we also need to be ethically competent. I was laughing when I was looking at this and listening to the register talking about competence and confidence. So you need also to be ethically competent. I'm looking from competence from the ethical aspect. When you make those decisions, how much knowledgeable are you in terms of considering all the ethical issues? How fair are you in taking those decisions? The kind of integrity that you need to display. How much are you building on your confidentiality when you are building trust? The first part that you lose confidentiality is about your colleague. Your colleague is sharing to you a personal matter. Before the end of the day, the passage is full of what you have been doing. You know, when I'm sharing my personal matter, you are waiting when am I finishing, because I want to send a message. Come on. That person has confidence in you. That person trusts you. And that person risks that trust by sharing something personal. There you are. You are playing with something that is so sensitive. And then there are so many sections in the HPCSA guidelines that talks about how you carry yourself. I'm not going to get there today, but the issue of confidentiality. It actually permeates every part of your work, every part of you. Your relationship with your colleagues, your relationship with your family, your relationship with everyone else. You have to. So it's very important, especially with your clients. And then now, this is why the issue of the gaps in ethical training tend to be important, especially when it comes to confidentiality during inspections. Because if you cannot maintain that confidentiality, you will be understood to be someone who is reckless in your business. And then people would start to lose trust in you. As they lose trust in you, they are losing trust in the profession. Because people tend to paint people with the same brush, especially when it comes to things that are not right. So confidentiality is very essential for building trust, but it is very challenging when it comes to how we carry inspections and during outbreaks, as well as during the issue of sharing data. So the ethical dilemma when it comes to this is that the EHPs must protect individual identities when they are reporting disease cases. That's a very difficult one, isn't it? Yes. You are expected to report honestly, but you also need to be protecting. But at the same time, the same law says you ought to be transparent. That confidentiality can be broken, but there must be. You are on a daily basis expected. How careless are you when you're dealing with the data? How are you sharing that data that you have collected? So those are the things that at times you take for granted, the record that we are keeping. Now let's look at the areas of application when it comes to this particular aspect. I promise you I'm going to be keeping on my time. I'm even going to give you more time. 5 areas of application of the confidentiality. If we look at, for instance, the ethical framework when it comes to in environmental health, there are these big terms they use I always try to avoid. But I'm going to be simplifying it from here. They talk about beneficence, where you are promoting the well-being of the people that you serve. Colleagues, when we render the service, we render like somebody, according to the Bible, they call it servanthood principle. You look at the interest of the other people. You look at the well-being of those people. You are in the shoes of those people. That's what you have to be when you carry your work, being an ethical person. Also, you have to prevent harm. They call it non-maleficence. You prevent harm. Don't hurt people. When you are not keeping confidentiality, you are hurting people. You are hurting people so much by your conduct. Guys, colleagues, please let's stop gossiping. Please. We are losing a lot of colleagues. People are suffering from mental issues. They are depressed because of the gossips. So these are the issues that you need to. If you find you carry inspection from business A, don't tell business B if you don't have to. That's how it is. Immediately you are taking issues of business A to business B. That's gossip. And you are causing more harm. And our integrity, we lose it. Justice. Be fair. Be fair in your dealings. Confidentiality. Protect information that you need to protect so as to build trust. According to the Batopele principle, to encourage people to come up for reporting complaints, they must be guaranteed that when they share information, it is going to be protected. But immediately you don't do that, people won't come out. Like the situation now that the bogus issues were talked about here and then the investigation. How can we have a profession that does not have issues like ours? When I carried investigation, the same findings, we did not have data on complaints about practices in our environment. Whereas we know, even in this room, if we were to talk the truth now, I can point many of you here. No, I'm joking. I don't know any. Okay, the sustainability, these are the principles. Sustainability, where you are actually dealing with issues of support. Precautional substitution, these are the 6 principles which I'm not going to be dwelling much on them at this point in time. But the most important things about these principles is that they are aligning EHP practice with the global ethical standards, as well as promoting the individual privacy as we are carrying our work. Now, the area number 1, if we were to look into the areas, yes, is ethic practice within the municipal services. Here, the responsibility of municipalities is dealing with water quality, food safety, waste, as well as pollution. And this is when I like my colleagues. They always talk about MHS. If you have not done MHS, you have not done environmental health. That's not always true. We are not trained to deal with MHS. We are trained to carry the scope. The scope is having, at least for now, the published 14 functions with the still to be finalized 18 functions. We need to be really looking into the whole picture, but the municipalities are playing a very important role. And then the ethical issues, confidentiality here, you need to protect the personal information that you are collecting, and then during the inspection, and making sure that you only disclose what need to be disclosed. And then you need to observe provisions, for instance, in Section 86A of the National Health Amendment Act, number 12 of 2013. So you need also to really keep that in mind, and so on. My leader. You also need to be ensure that when you're carrying your inspections and enforcing compliance, you are doing that within this. So the confidentiality dilemma is balancing the privacy. You know, if you are having the vendor's health status, they say somebody is having TB. Do you come across that situation when a vendor is sick? And how do you handle that situation of confidentiality? Whereas you're protecting the person is sick, how are you going to handle that? Colleagues, let's be practical about these things. You are having a food handler, the food handler is having flu, okay. Food handlers ought to be safe, isn't it? They are cooking for the public. You go to that food vendor store, is sick, how to handle it? You find a worker with TB in a food outlet. How do you report this while you are protecting confidentiality? Come on, are you here?
Yes, we are here.
Yes. How do you report it? I don't want to be a preacher. I'm sharing. I want you to be here, alive and present. How do you deal with that situation? You are finding the food handler is having open sores, no protection, no PE. All right. Okay. So now in the municipal area, the ethical issue, the issue of equity, you need to prioritize the really undeserved communities. How do you do that? Municipalities are sponsored only on the, what is it, they call it Degent group, the people that are indigent. Now, what is happening is, there's a small percentage, isn't it? But when you are providing resources, do you consider those people? Do you really focus on that? From the ethics point of view, those undeserving people, you need to be prioritizing them and looking at their interests and ensure that the privacy policy is looking to that, the rural areas and so on. So when it comes to, you need to educate people for compliance, for enforcement, and only share information that is needed and prevent outbreaks. So integrity, you must reject bribes. You know, the nice thing about bribes, it feels so nice. And it normally, you know, you need that $2,000. You need that $2,000, you need new tires. And there this person is offering you, God knows me, He knows my needs. I'm falling for this one. Oh, hey. The preliminary committee is going to be on you, I'm telling you. So you need to maintain privacy. So you need not disclose inspection findings where it is not necessary. And these are very difficult ones. Also, when you have collected that data, are you having encrypted? Are you having that secured? But by right, you ought to be having that information must be protected. People must not just get into that. So these are the things that we find very difficult in terms of the data we are having. We're having a lot of information there. That information that you are collecting, oh, by the way, you write reports every month. Where is that information going? And how are you keeping that information? How confident is that information? Wow. Okay. Yeah. Area number 2. The national framework. Now the Department of Health is here. So there are national issues. They set the policies and the norms, and they coordinate a lot of activities. Now, the safeguarding of the information in the national system. You have got the National Information System. How protected is that information from hacking and then information that is not supposed to be divulged and tend to be? So these are the things that we face when research is conducted. Legitimate research, surveillance that are taking place, that data that we get, how sensitive are we in terms of protecting confidentiality so that we don't infringe on people's rights? So we easily give people gatekeepers letter and access information that at times is not meant to be. So these are the things that we need to be sensitized on. Sharing information on disease data, which is very important, we have to be doing that, but we need to make sure that we are not compromising privacy. National outbreak requires data sharing. How much do we share? So these are the things that we need to be. How do we ensure confidentiality when the National Environmental Health Policy is actually imposing some ethical issues on the use of that data? All right, so the issues that we can look at here is the issues of equity, addressing vulnerable groups like children. Children are always vulnerable, and then we make sure that we anonymize data. We anonymize data. There is anonymity, there is confidentiality. Anonymity is when you pseudo, you code the information so that you protect the identities and so on. You use precautional approach by making sure that you deal with the issues accordingly. Confidentiality, you protect the data from the national system, and by ensuring that you secure your environmental health information system, and then having collaborations with the partners who deal with these areas. Number 3, let's look at the area number 3, ethical practice in the border management. Is there anyone from the border management here?
Yes, sir.
I said they must offer me a position. I just want to be making sure that before I retire, I want to be a commander in chief. So Now here, the Port Health Services, colleagues, I'm also appealing to my colleagues from the training institutions. Colleagues, this is the area that has suffered for a long time. It has not received the balance that MHS is receiving and the other areas of practice. We need to really pay more attention to these areas, to the point that sometime it was, if you were doing community service in those areas, you were not regarded as having done community service, whereas it is part of the scope of practice. So the Port Health Services is also very important. The confidentiality here when it comes to protecting the travelers. And it's a very difficult one here, disclosing that information during also control or consignment and so on, enforcing the measures here, reporting a traveler's health status during outbreak without breaching privacy. How do you balance that? You are expected to report this person, but this person is also having rights that you need to protect. Scenario here, the person refuses vaccination disclosure. Can you let somebody go when he's refusing to divulge the vaccination, whereas you ought to be ensuring confirmation? How do you deal with that as an EHP? You ought to be, you're on duty. And then the law is not protecting you from not doing it. So these are the things that tend to be very difficult when it comes to dealing with these aspects and so on. How do you balance your confidentiality with safety? You let the person go, you are risking the safety. You deal with the person, you are infringing the person's right. Wow. That's so difficult, eh? Yeah, no, those are the challenges. But if, I put here, there's a training that we deal for border management. We said all EHPs can deal with. So if you need more, we deal with that, even dealing with the risk management and how you deal with that aspect. We actually teach you how you deal with it. So in our short courses on ethics. So the border management here, the most important thing is non-discrimination. Treat travelers equally. How do you? Because they are not equal. COVID landed in South Africa by somebody who was having it. But it might have been somebody important who just get out of it. You were not treated maybe. How did it escape from the border management? Hello? Apply health checks impartially. Don't leave certain people because of their status. Disease knows no boundaries and knows no status. Integrity. Still here, reject bribes. And I think here there are even more. There are even more here. Report corruption, okay? Because, those are the gateways. Those are the gateways. People are coming there. Secure your consignment data and make sure. Confidentiality, limit data disclosure on issues that need to be treated with strict. Take precautionary measures by making sure that you protect potential risk. Okay, so implement some quarantines where necessary. That will help. Area number 4, almost there. HPCSA. This time, HPCSA, I'm not going to be saying much. My colleagues have covered a lot of ground here. But HPCSA governs the profession. In terms of registration, there is the CPDs, we call it CEUs, per year that we ought to be dealing with. But also the issue of conduct. Confidentiality here is to protect individual data now from the HPCSA. How do you protect the integrity that I'm not compliant? I registered as an individual, not as a group. I need to be protected. But I did not comply. My information, can it be in public? No, I'm asking. Can my information be in public? But is it not in public? Okay. I'm challenging you to think very deeply when it comes to these things. So protecting the community as well as individual data, obtaining informed consent for disclosures, is that happening? No. Most of the time information lands out there. But, there are those difficult issues. It's not as straightforward as I'm saying. So the dilemma here is handling inspection data as well as managing social media. How do you deal with this? Social media does not ask permission. They release information immediately about issues. And then how do we protect the individualized advocate? Somebody is leaking information in the social media, sensitive information, and quoting EHPs as a source. Those are the things. EHPs need to be make sure that you deal. How do you maintain that confidentiality, given that EHPs stipulates that confidentiality is a constitutional imperative? So these are the things that we are facing as challenges. Now, when it comes to EHPs, the issue of reporting violation is still a big issue. Report violation and seek redress in circumstances where you have found there are situations that you believe your clients have been compromised or violated. But also, as a manager or a responsible person, it is in your power to protect people who report misconduct. Do you protect them? Some people do not report because the very people they report to are not reliable. They cannot be trusted with confidentiality. And even people using the people on the whistleblowing. The whistleblowing is not intact because the information is managed by people who leak information, and then you end up knowing who is the person. My question is, how are you doing in this area? Are you reporting? How long must we keep a blind eye or suffer from these perpetrators of violation? And we keep a blind eye. The professional standards that we can do is the issue of respect for persons. Uphold the dignity and privacy by making sure that we obtain consent. And that is very difficult when it comes to community because we are public workers. Finding community where there are councillors. The councillor says are standing for the community. We speak for the community. We are the representatives. But according to ethics, each person has got a right to express own view. But now if there is a representative, then it becomes a difficult issue. And how do you obtain consent for those people? Promoting health and avoiding things, promoting justice is also here. Issue of competence is very important when it comes to HPSSA by making sure that you are good in your ethics. But there is a need for training on the area of the POPI Act, which is something that is not talked about. Personal information, protection of personal information. It's very important that we are actually taught about this particular area. Last area that I want to touch in few minutes, Chair, is the area of academia. We ought to be balancing theory and practice. And for a long time, it's better now, and we have to thank the outgoing board for the effort we have made. We have had this issue of they, them for a long time. I've been in the academia since 1998, and I've seen things changing and difficulties we're experiencing, where EHPs say we have got nothing to do with the training. We are all equal when it comes to this area. So the academia, according to the higher education and training, they are given a mandate to operate within the theory context of acquiring and imparting. We acquire and impart knowledge. That's what we do. But that knowledge ought to be professional knowledge that is suitable to train people to be fit for purpose. We focus on realigning this theory with practice so as to prepare the very people that are being trained that they are ready for the world of work. And they remain relevant and contemporary. They understand the latest issues. I think it was the chair talking about somebody who qualified with 6 months, long time ago, and so on. Don't tell me that I qualified long time, so I'm still irrelevant, isn't it? Don't you think? I'm still relevant. It's CPDs, continuous professional development. You catch up with the things, you're on the cutting edge. The ultimate aim is professional competencies. And these are the issues that we need to talk about, these professional competencies. As a profession, Chair, it's a pity you are outgoing, but the incoming board ought to... The professional competencies, can we agree on what are these professional competencies, not just by letter or by word of mouth, but we really talk about which are these professional competencies that we all have to be having equality on them, so as to make sure that the academia is making sure that there is unity between the academics and the practicing EHPs in terms of the professional competence. We need to balance theory and act by doing what? Strengthening synergies between the industry and the higher education institutions. Making sure that the higher education institutions' mandate of acquiring and imparting knowledge is within what is required, and making sure that also we involve these learners in the training. The last part that I want to wrap up with in the next 5 minutes or less is the issue of what are the challenges we are facing. Section 24 of the Constitution prescribes the right to environment that is safe and not harmful. And EHPs ought to protect the communities from this, and that is an ethical responsibility as much as it is a regulatory issue. Section 33 talks about the right to lawful, reasonable, fair administrative actions, which we talked about. If you link that with Section 195, it talks about what kind of public administration we need. EHPs here ought to make sure that their decisions are transparent. When they are doing premises surveillance, they make sure that they are carrying themselves in a transparent manner. Chapter 10, which is Section 195, demands high professional ethics and impartiality. And the impact of this would be the Constitution aims to align our practices with that of the World Health Organization Environmental Health Focus, which is aiming at guiding EHPs to be having ethical conduct and carrying themselves in a proper manner. In terms of the amended National Health Act number 12 of 2013, there are also key issues of ethics here. This one talks about strengthening the municipal environmental health services, where the food surveillance is also done within the context of ethics, where mandates EHPs to enforce this legislation. And the ethical implications here is alignment with the already mentioned Section 27 of the Act. And then also this requires accountability in terms of ensuring that the notifiable conditions are done accordingly. However, the challenge is the shortage of EHPs, which does not link up with the population ratio. And the training of EHPs tend to having gaps in terms of ethics, even about the same act they are implementing. When last were you orientated or being taught around the issues of the National Health Act? How much do you know about your appointment and the implications of that appointment? How many of you are carrying themselves according to the Act? That Act prescribes that you must, when you are appointed, you must have a card. When you're carrying inspection, you must display, having this displayed. Do you follow that to the law? These are the things that we tend to be, you need to be making sure that we deal with these aspects. The other challenge is that there is no specific ethics code. Let's qualify this. Ethics code does not make people ethical. It's just helping. The code is tend to be a guide that will conscientize people, giving them guidelines and so on. Perverse incentives. EHPs face pressure from businesses and risking their interest. Is that true? Do you get pressure to be bribed? Do you get pressure to pass certain businesses from certain authorities? Oh, you don't. Very interesting. So resource constraints, shortage of EHPs, funding, training gaps. If you're needing more help, we can talk. These are the trainings we offer. There is an introduction for ethics, where we look into the various aspects for all EHPs and any other professional in the profession. Border management, ethical considerations for border management, EHPs, the ethics introductions to academic staff, ethics and professional practice for EHPs in the surveillance of premises in South Africa. We delve much on these areas, and then you can be able to assist you. In closing, Chair, as I promised, confidentiality alongside with equity and integrity anchors ethical EHP practice, ensuring that we are compliant with the Constitution. Let's prioritize confidentiality while we are pursuing CPD ethics compliance, but we need to advocate that EHPs understand their role from the ethics, but we also need to advocate for an ethical code for the profession. In closing, ethical practice with robust confidentiality will build trust and will also enhance public health outcomes. Confidentiality is our ethical cornerstone. Therefore, I call upon all EHPs to have courage to lead with integrity. May God bless you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Poswa.